Friends, I love the conversation that you're about to listen to on this episode with Ashley Wright, just talking about mindful eating and just really what does it mean to approach food from a healthy place and be mindful when we're eating to reach our health goals. I think so many people approach mindful eating thinking that it's just it's not eating chips. It's not doing this. It's being more mindful about what. No, but mindful eating is actually being very present with your food. It's enjoying your food, and it's choosing foods, being very intentional with foods that really give you life and nourish you. And so I'm going to link an episode in here that I did on what mindful eating is and isn't so that you can listen to that. But please enjoy this episode with Ashley. And I just loved the conversation we had. Please make sure you follow her, all of her resources, and check her out as well. All right, enjoy the episode. You're listening to the Madewell Women podcast, and I am Brianna Wilkerson, your host. You know, for over half my life, I really had to pay attention to my relationship with food, with my body, and with myself. As a young girl, I just started to find my worth in my weight and my work. And I really started to define my beauty, my body, and my value in all of those things. And that led to a very not healthy way of eating, not healthy way of taking care of myself. But when I started to realize that my worth was not in my weight and that healthy living did not have to be so depriving, but it could actually be joyful, that's when I found freedom and breakthrough. And it has been my mission ever since to help women do the same. So Madewell Women is about helping other women find peace with food, create healthy habits, and use essential oils confidently. So you're going to find solo episodes, you're going to find guest interviews from time to time, and really you're just going to find a space where I can talk to you from heart to heart, woman to woman, to really support you in creating your version of food freedom, finding healthy habits that support you in your life, and using essential oils to support you along the way. And as I mentioned, I'm an essential oils lover and I'm an advocate with doTERRA, and I really want to help more and more women and homes use essential oils for your health and for women's health, their family, and their homes. So I'm so glad you're here and so glad to support you. Before you go and listen to the episode, I want you to do a couple things. One, make sure you join the Madewell Women's Health community. This is a space where you can unpack these episodes and get support on your journey, as well as follow me on Instagram because I share all about behind the scenes of my own life there as well. All right, enjoy the episode, and I can't wait to get to know you more and support you. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited today to talk about mindful eating and mindset. You all know that is one of my favorite conversations. And I think as I talk with more coaches, I think we realize that that's actually at the core of a lot of the work we do. You can learn all the strategies you want with health, but if you're not really working on the mindset and then that mindful eating, it really can make just healthy living in general very hard. And so Ashley is here to talk with us a little bit about that, her experience and how she helps her clients in that. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's get started first getting to know you. So tell us a little bit more about you, your journey with health. And I know you work full time as a dietitian right now, and then you're also doing your own business. Like what brought you to both of those things?
Yeah. So, I'll start off with the dietitian piece of it. So I've been a dietitian for 11 years now. I just last week had my 11-year dietitian anniversary, I'll call it. It kind of started back in high school. I really thought I wanted to be a chef. Cooking was totally my thing. I love it. I still love it. I watch the Food Network all the time. But I kind of realized that the lifestyle of a chef was not exactly what I wanted to do. And then it kind of got into more, I thought about the sciencey aspect. I thought about chemistry. I don't really know how that even came about for me exactly. And then somehow the two came together for me, and nutrition just seemed like the perfect fit. And, I had family members who, struggled with diabetes and heart disease and other health issues. And I really wanted to be, part of the prevention rather than just the treatment side of it, which of course is important, but I wanted to be more on that preventative side. So I decided to go into nutrition to pursue that. And it really just was something just all of a sudden clicked one day. It was like light bulb moment for me that being a dietitian made sense. And I've been working mainly doing one-on-one counseling with clients since I've been a dietitian. So for the past 11 years. And then come the fall time, that's when I decided to start my own business as a dietitian. I always wanted to do my own private practice. It was a dream of mine for a long time. And after having 2 children, I realized that I wanted to do something for myself and for my family and not be working for somebody else anymore. I wanted to start to build my own nutrition empire. So that's what I'm working on now. And I'm really passionate about the weight loss space, but not, when it comes to weight loss, there's so many layers to it. And I don't feel like, and everybody will ask me, what should my weight be? And what should this be? And I'm like, it's where you feel comfortable, where you feel healthy. Don't go buy a BMI chart. Let's not go by these standards that we see all the time. Let's figure out what works best for you and not cut out all your favorite foods to, in the process. Let's not restrict ourselves. Like, that's my huge passion, is like taking the stress out of the weight loss process and figuring out more of the behavioral part rather than just calorie counting and all those other pieces that usually go with it.
Oh man, I love that. Like, this podcast has gone through so many names, but I think I was always trying to figure out, like, because that is the piece that I think most women want support around when they're thinking at least about getting healthy. They're first thinking about their weight, which isn't a bad thing to do. But as you and I both know, that like health is more than your weight. And so people might come in saying, hey, I want to lose weight, but you're actually helping them change their behaviors, change their habits, change their mindsets. And that's some of the work that I do too. And how that is, like, when you learn that stuff, it doesn't, like, no matter what weight you'll be or no matter what health issue you have, like you'll have the tools necessarily to really address that. And so I love that. I love that. And so tell me a little bit, since you've been a dietitian for 11 years and you are kind of still doing that, like, what is the difference between like a dietitian, a nutritionist, if there is a difference, and like a health coach, right? Because I think that's a question I often get. Like, what do you feel like, maybe they do similar things, but what's like the difference between the three?
Yeah. So, I guess technically now we can call ourselves registered dietitian nutritionists, which I just still call myself a registered dietitian because it just gets to be a mouthful.
Yeah.
So I'm an RD, or you could be RDN, whichever you want. You have the freedom to choose. But I think a lot of people just know what a nutritionist is a little bit more, like that name just kind of resonates more. But as a dietitian, so I went to school and got my, master's in nutrition specifically. And then once you go to school for nutrition and get your bachelor's in it, then you have to be accepted into an internship program. So it's a highly competitive thing. There's not enough of them out there for all of us who want to be dietitians. But once you get accepted into a program, then you go through rotations, kind of like a residency, where we have clinical, we have community. Like, I spent some time at a WIC clinic, a long-term care facility, a school system. I was kind of like a lunch lady for a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's all these different components to it. Then once you finish your internship, then you have to take a national exam to become a registered dietitian. So there's, some steps to the process with that. So we're credentialed by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So that's the difference with a dietitian. The word nutritionist isn't really like, you can't just call yourself a registered dietitian, but nutritionist isn't really regulated. So that term is a little bit more loosely used sometimes. And not to say, there's certain things that we all, that we all talk about similarly, but a dietitian has gone through that, specific process.
So you have gotten a lot more, I'm kind of like medical training, even on like the specifics and like, all
way
of that.
Too many like biochem classes.
I know. My sister's in allied health right now. And she just talks, she's like, I can't, these biochems, my goodness. She's like, as long as I can avoid organic chem. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, gotcha. Organic chem. Yes, I had to do that. That was terrible, but yeah.
Yes,
And I remember zero of it now, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. And there's, even as we go along, there's a lot more like functional diagnostic nutrition practitioners. So there's a lot of different terms. And so I just was, curious, so people can kind of even hear, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end, like specifically what you do. But, for me, like say as a health coach, it's like, I went to school for accounting. Like I did not study health, even though I always loved the subject, but I got a health coaching certification, which has a lot to do with kind of habits and change and coaching different aspects, right? So I don't necessarily have as much training as you, and even though I may know some of the things like way more in some areas, right? So I think that I just wanted to share that because I just think people have that question often, and often people may. Some of my first clients came to me and was like, "Give me a specific like eating plan. And I was like, actually, that's not what I'm like, that's
Mhm.
not what I'm like really studied in. I can work
Yeah.
with you to create healthy meals or healthy habits, right? So it's just
Yeah.
helpful for people to know like different people
Mhm.
could offer different things. And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, so let's talk then a little bit about mindful eating and mindset. So I know that again,
Mhm.
you help a lot of women in this weight loss space.
Mhm.
And I totally agree. Let's not look at the BMI. Let's not even like get obsessed with the scale, because these measurements, I think, I don't know if you probably know more than this about me, just like when they were created, BMI and all that, it was created not by for women or not by a typical man. It just was created for something specific way
Mhm.
back when that actually had nothing to do with health. And so now we've adopted this, and now, we think like this is like the golden rule, like we have to be this certain weight and within this certain range to be healthy. When even
Mhm.
as you said, like, yes, that may be a good indicator, but that's not the only thing we need to be looking at. So tell us a little bit more about even how you approach that weight loss space by focusing on mindset and mindful eating.
Mhm. Yeah, because I think honestly, what I tell a lot of my clients to do is just to put the darn scale away and be done with it, because it will ruin your mindset, I feel like, over time, and especially if you're getting on it every single day, at least then going to like work your way to every other. And eventually, like, we want to get rid of it, because to me, it's how we're feeling, go by how your clothes are fitting. If you're having more energy, but those are all such important components that to me are more important than the number on the scale, because I feel like it kind of sets ourselves up mindset wise to almost feel like we're not doing enough. If you see the scale, maybe you're feeling really good, but the scale's only moved like 1 pound, and you're like, then it just defeats you completely. Um, and no matter what, we always want more. Even if you lost one, you're like, oh, well, I really wish I would have lost 3 or whatever it may be. So, I really feel like those numbers really play, they really they mess with our mind so much that it's not worth it in the long run to me. Your weight doesn't define your health. That's how I feel about it too. There could be somebody as skinny as a rail that has a million health issues too. So we can't just go by that. And with the mindful piece, it's more like, it's less focusing on the what we're eating, because we're always thinking about the food and the meal planning and all that, but it's more about, the how and the why and the where, and focusing on the food a little bit more, because for most of us, we're just running and busy, and we've got a lot going on that we're not really actually sitting down and paying attention to our meals and our snacks as much as we really should be.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of what you're even saying. Like, it's one, your weight doesn't define your health. And even for me, a lot of the work I do is for like your worth isn't defined in your weight either, because we as women have suddenly started telling ourselves that our worth and our health as women is in this number on the scale. But I love how you're like, okay, so eating, obviously nutrition, even though there's all these other healthy habits, nutrition's at the foundation of our health, right? Like what we eat really will either help our body be healthier or like take away from it. And so what you're saying is like, let's not necessarily start focusing on the what, but focus on like the how, the where, like the patterns that you have around eating, because that will also like, because that could be driving what you're eating without
Mm-hmm.
even noticing. Like what you're saying, if we're busy and we're on a go, it's like you're gonna get something quick, and sometimes that something quick isn't the best thing for you. Or so yeah, tell us a little, let's talk a little bit more about mindful eating then. How do we practice that? Like what does that really look like in our everyday life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it starts with as I know, we kind of think about, like, if we're keeping like a food journal, for example, we think about tracking calories and macros and all that kind of stuff. I think a food journal is more helpful if we're writing down where we are when we have our meal, how we're feeling before, how we're feeling after, what's going on. Are we stressed? Are we sad? Are we happy? Those things are going to help you so much more than being worried about every little fat gram that you're eating. So, if you're sitting down to have a meal, set a timer and see how long it takes you to eat your meal, and pay attention to what you're doing. Are you scrolling on Instagram, or are you trying to get some work done? Or, because I know for a lot of us, and I'm guilty of it too, I'll like eat while I'm working at lunch, and you're not really focusing on the meal. Even if you could take 10 minutes and just solely focus on the meal and how it's tasting to you, if you're actually enjoying it truly, because that's one practice that I tell a lot of people to start doing, is when you're having something, ask yourself 3 questions. do I love it? Am I indifferent about it? Like, is it okay? Or do I really not like it at all? And sometimes there's things that we're eating that we really don't even care for. And why are we going to waste our food intake on something that we really just don't want in the first place? You know, like if we're at a party or social gathering or out to lunch or something with friends, and sometimes things just put in front of us and our visual hunger just tends to take over really easily because it's just powerful. But, you know, really like taking that step back and asking yourself those questions, even if you just start doing that a couple times a week, you'll start to notice, you know, some changes in yourself.
You know, what's so great about that, because I think often when people will ask, and I often give those tips around when people are like emotional eating, when people recognize like, okay, I have an issue around maybe just different emotions, happy or sad, whatever, I use food. Then we start to ask ourselves those questions. But I love what you're saying is like, regardless, those are very important questions to be asking. Just like, what was your environment? Who were you around? Like, when did you eat that? Versus just writing down the food, because I think we've made health and food and healthy food and nutrition very black and white. Like these certain foods are healthy, and when I'm not eating that, I'm bad, or it's not moving me towards my goals, when in reality that's not true. And so I love how, again, you're calling people to that mindfulness, that deeper awareness that, you know, isn't easy. So, you know, if you're used to like thinking that like I'm only healthy when I'm eating these certain foods, it's going to be hard to accept that, like, no, we're just for 2 weeks or for a month of working with us, you're gonna write down what you eat. We're not going to be worried about what you eat. Like, what, you know? But that, you know, if it took us decades, probably many of us decades to develop certain beliefs and habits around food and nutrition, it's going to take us a while to shift them. So love how you're calling people to that, like, you know, deeper change and that deeper mindset shift as well.
Yeah, it's just, and you're right. Like everybody's just so used to like, oh gosh, well, where's my list of foods that I'm allowed to eat? Am I allowed? Can I have this? Are you sure? I'm like, yes, I'm sure. I wouldn't tell you, you know, it's just, it's so amazing to me how we just get so wired to think that way. You know, like you said, I really dislike the good and bad food mentality. You know, I always say like, yes, there's more optimal choices and some less optimal, of course. Like that's just how it is. But who defines exactly what, you know, like who says that this is so terrible for you? You know, I make everything fit into what I eat, and I want other people to do the same. Like, I'm not going to tell somebody to do something that I wouldn't do myself.
Right. Yeah. I love what you're talking about, good and bad, right? Like it's very easy. That good and bad has to do with morality. And it's like we make eating food moral, and this moral thing where we shame ourselves or shame others when we're not eating certain. And it's just like, let's just be done with that. Like we have enough issues and stresses on our plate to deal with, that we don't need to be like taking on that stress and stuff like that. So love that. Well, you know, practically, I know you have like an exercise or worksheet that you can share with the listeners on like mindful eating, but what's like one other thing that could be really helpful if someone's trying to start practicing more mindful eating?
One thing that I think is good to do is even think about how even like your kitchen is set up. You know, if you have, like, if you open up your pantry, what's like the first thing that's in front of you, you know, or like if you can kind of even like set yourself up for a little bit more success in mindful eating. Like sometimes it's just those things that prompt us to make better choices. I think that helps too. Or even your refrigerator. If like you chop up that pineapple right when you buy it and put it in the front, you're more likely to have it than if it just sits on your counter like mine is right now that I haven't cooked yet. So, you know, just really paying attention to those things. And even like when you go out to eat, thinking about, you know, what are the foods that tend to fill me up more than others, you know, or that can apply at home or out, but no, it's just something to think about too. When we're writing down those things, write down like what days worked really well for you, what days made you feel better and more energetic, and how can you continue to replicate that day. So
love that. Yeah. I mean, your surrounding and your environment. I think when you're growing up as teenagers, you know, your parents tell you like who you surround yourself with is very important, like for everything. And it's the same thing with your food, like what foods you surround yourself with, how you set that up is either going to move you closer towards your goal or further away. So there's just certain foods, not that I don't eat, that I just don't keep in the house, because I know personally, I know my personality. If they're there, I'm just going to have a piece on Monday, a piece on Tuesday, a piece on Wednesday, a piece on Thursday, versus like, you know what, like I'm going to go get it and I'm going to sit down and enjoy it. And then let that be it. So I think I love that what you were saying, like first, really looking and taking a food journal and really seeing like the factors surrounding your eating, and then also your environment and how that sets up. And I just think basically what I hear you saying from this conversation is like you have to just be intentional and practice awareness. And not try to just like cover the problem with a Band-Aid, like
exactly,
which I just think we do so much, and we're taught to do. We're taught to just be like, just try this quick 30-day program and it's going to change everything for you.
Right.
Versus like it takes 60 to 90 days to really create a good habit,
Yeah, and breaking it down into small, manageable habits instead of feeling like you have to change your whole lifestyle and turn everything upside down. It's like, let's just focus on one thing that's easy for you to do right now.
Yeah.
And if it's, taking the chocolate out of the pantry and putting something else in its place, then let's roll with that for now. So,
Right. Love that. So I would love for you to share. I know you have a couple free resources and you have a Facebook group, and you were talking about there's like a mindful eating worksheet. Share with us a little bit about those free resources people can grab.
Sure. Yeah. So the mindful eating worksheet, I'll make sure I get that over to you so you can share it, but it kind of walks you through, like you take a piece of chocolate and it walks you through all these steps to do just eating this one piece of chocolate. And I know it sounds kind of funny, like to take 5 minutes to eat one little piece of chocolate, but I'll be interested to know what people notice as they're doing it, because I've done it in like group settings before in some classes that I've taught. And if people notice that they don't find that they need as much to feel satisfied because they're actually like taking the time to savor it, so it's just kind of like, sometimes when we're eating, we're just doing it so quickly that we don't even realize or like experience the flavors and truly enjoy it and notice all those little bits about it. So just take the time, even do it like with your kids, make it a little fun activity, and go through this mindful eating exercise. It's just interesting to see what you observe.
Nice. And then you have your Facebook group.
Yeah. So I launched that a few months ago, and it's called Stress-Free Weight Loss for Busy Mamas. So that's my Facebook group, and I go live every week in there with a little more in-depth training for my group members. And I put up some free resources in there too. So yeah, it's a great environment. So if you come on over into the group, we're sharing lots of recipes and other things in there too. So I'd be happy to have you there.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else as we wrap up that you would like to share with people as we talk more about this mindset and mindful eating? Any piece of encouragement or tip?
Just, honestly, I think one of the biggest things is just to not be so hard on yourself all the time, and I think that relates to so many different aspects. But, if you're just trying to even implement a few of these mindful eating things we've been talking about, just pick one to start and just see how it goes. Don't feel like you have to be implementing all these changes or else it's not worth it.
Right.
Like you were saying with eating, we get in that very black and white, what we think we should be doing. There's nobody else that's telling you this is what you should do. It's you. And figure out what it is that's going to work for you. And don't feel like if you're not making all these things and doing all these changes that you're a failure, because you're not.
Right.
Nobody's ever failing unless they give up completely and totally. So
yeah. So good. So good. Well, as we wrap up, where can people follow you besides your Facebook group? Are you on Instagram, social, your website?
Yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram. It's at whyeatwise, like WHYEATWISE. And I will have my website up. Probably by the time this comes out, my website should be live. So it's whyeatwise.com. It's in progress. But if you go to whyeatwise.com, there's some links to both my Facebook and my Instagram on the page now. So you can find me there too.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us and sharing all your story, but all your tips around mindful eating and mindset today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Are you someone who loves setting food and health goals, but find it hard to keep up with them and stay consistent? Maybe you've set huge goals and find that as a few months progress, those goals seem too hard to accomplish and so you give up. Or maybe you break your goals into bite-sized pieces but find it difficult to feel accomplished and celebrate those small victories. If so, this food journal and habits tracker is for you. My More Than Your Weight food journal and habits tracker is a condensed version of an exact kind of 6-week process that I lead my one-on-one clients through. My clients have seen so much transformation in their relationship with food and understanding how food impacts them emotionally, mentally, and physically, as well as tracking their habits, creating habits, and celebrating those habits along the way. So if you're looking to create diet-free meals for yourself filled with nutritious foods, drink more water and be energized, make veggies a part of your life, and cut back on sugar, start sleeping more through the night, understand the emotions driving you to eat, speak loving, positive affirmations and truth over your body, learn to fit in exercise and movement, and practice more mindful eating while tracking your progress and celebrating every step of the way, this tracker is for you. So go ahead and check it out. It is only $47 right now. And again, you're going to get a food journal, you're going to get a habits tracker, and you're actually going to get a food chart to really help you create, mix and match, and create healthy, whole food, nourishing meals. So check out the resource. And once you dive in, let me know. I would love to hear from you how it supports you. And when you purchase a tracker, you even get access to a mini session with me. Okay, so go check it out, and I hope you enjoy. I hope you loved this episode. I hope it just opened your eyes more to what mindful eating is, how it can transform your relationship to and with food. And as always, I just want to make sure you know that this is something that takes time. We've all have beliefs and thoughts and actions that we have put towards food and interacted with food for so long that it becomes really hard to just get in a good place and create our own version of food freedom for ourselves, all right? And so make sure you go check out the resources that Ashley, but also that I mentioned to really support you, whether it's my food freedom journal or even whether it's my food journal and habits tracker, because those resources are really what's going to help you get to a good place with food so that you can truly take care of yourself in a healthy and nourishing way. All right. I'll see you on the next episode. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Madewell Women podcast and enjoyed whether it was me and a solo episode or my guest thoughts on really how to help you live a healthy life and to be made well. But before you go, I want to make sure you know you're not alone. These podcasts are meant to be inspirational. They're meant to support you as you're going about your daily life. But where I have found the most transformation is one-on-one support, but also community. So make sure you join the Madewell Women's Health community, where you can process this podcast and get support in whatever aspect of a Madewell journey you're on. And also make sure you follow me on Instagram, because there you're going to also be able to see behind the scenes and just how I live my own Madewell woman life. All right. Can't wait to support you. Can't wait to get to know you more. And again, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Please rate, review it. Let me know how it was for you. And the more people that rate and review the podcast, the more women that could see it. All right. That's it. Bless you. And I'll see you on the next episode.